Hello out there, my name is Felix Okeke. I'm your marriage counselor and coach. And tonight on Marriage Without Tears channel, we're going to be discussing an issue that will be to bring a lot of benefit to you. You need to understand this at a deeper level. It's an issue that has become prevalent in so many advanced nations of the world. What is that issue? Divorce. Divorce, the legal cessation of marriage. In so many advanced nations of the world, we have come to see divorce as possibly the ultimate or the only option available to a couple who can no longer work out their own marriage profitably. They feel that maybe time has come for us to part ways, to go our different ways and seek our own different visions and goals. Therefore, there is a need for us to part ways. You know, it has become prevalent in so many nations of the earth today. But there are serious effects, and that is what we are going to be discussing today. There are serious effects. What exactly is divorce? Like I said, is the legal cessation of marriage. What do I mean by this? I mean that if you were married in court, you need to go back to the courts to have the marriage annulled. If you are married culturally and there was an exchange of dowries, like in most African societies, it is the man's family that pays dowry to the woman's family. Like in India, it is the woman's family that pays a dowry to the man's family. But whichever is the case in your own nation, if you are getting divorced, it simply means that the dowries had to be returned. That is the only way that you can give a legal ground for divorce. So that is what exactly is the difference between a separation and divorce. In the case of separation, you can separate for a season and continue believing that sometimes in the near future, whatever is the issue between you and your spouse could get resolved, and then you come back to the union and continue your marital journey. But if it is divorce, divorce simply means we have parted ways. And if there is a need for us to come back together, then the marriage has to be restarted from ground zero up. If a dowry was returned, then that dowry had to be paid again. If there was a marriage that was annulled in court, then that marriage has to be resuscitated. So the real difference is that in the case of separation, there is still hope for a reconciliation. But in the case of, divorce, it is like a permanent solution. So what are the effects for some of us who are still in marriage, who may be contemplating divorce because of one frustration or the other, because of one unmet expectations or the other, because of one ugly behavior or the other, or maybe there was violence or whatever, you are contemplating divorce. You need to know what you are getting yourself into so that you can sit back proactively and look at the situation or the scenario in your own marital situation and see whether you can amend it or whether you can simply part ways and seek for ways of mending fences and still coming back to your marriage, or whether you have decided that enough is enough. If you are deciding to go your separate ways, then there are consequences, there are effects, not only to yourself as a man or as a woman, but to the children of the relationship if there are children in that relationship. There are some serious effects, and that's what we are going to discuss even now. If you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so immediately. Look at the red button by my side. That is the subscribe button. Click on that red button and get subscribed so that we do this together. What is the first consequence of divorce? The first negative consequence of divorce. The happiness, the joy of such a man or a woman who have divorced, the joy seems to decrease. It just decreases. But there is the belief in most people contemplating divorce that once I divorce this man or I divorce this woman, then I'll get back myself and I'll get back my senses and all my joy will be restored and I'll become better and better. But you discover that it's not usually the same. It's not usually the same because a lot of things have been mixed between both of you. You had shared a life together. Whether you like it or not, there were joys, there were moments of joy, there were moments of happiness, there were moments of, excitement in that relationship, even though it has nosedived, but there were such moments, and you will always recall such moments. And when you recall them, you get saddened instead of becoming happy. Whether you like it or not, there are reasons why you went into that marriage in the first place. There were things you saw the man, there were virtues you saw in the man or in the woman that made you go to that marriage. And those virtues may still be there. It's simply that you fail to manage them effectively. And when you get divorced, you will always remember those virtues with nostalgia. Somehow, instead of being happier, you will get sadder. I have seen that happen in so many married couples who got divorced. Instead of getting happier, they get depressed, they get bitter on the inside, they get angry on the inside, and their joy level seems to just go down dramatically. It happens to most people who are divorced. So that is the very first consequence of divorce. The second consequence of divorce is emotional trauma that goes with it. The emotional trauma. Have you ever seen people who got divorced? Try and go into an interview with them. Just interview them, and you discover that every one of them will always try to blame the other. There is a kind of buck passing. It's like it is the other man that did it, it's the woman that did it, if not for what she did or what he did. They continue blaming themselves over the years. And that brings a lot of emotional trauma onto them. And they become bitter on the inside. They become frustrated down the line. They become depressed. Some even become suicidal. The emotional trauma that goes with divorce is so much, really so much. I mean, if you have ever seen anybody who got divorced recently, you will understand what I mean. The contours of the face changed. Everything about the behavior changed. Their patterns of their moods, everything changes. They become completely depressed. And sometimes it lasts for a whole season. It lasts for years and years. And it affects their capacity to even get engaged with potential suitors or potential members of the opposite. I mean, people who may desire to get involved with them in the future. They find themselves still referring back to the relationship that was lost. They find themselves comparing whoever's suitor that comes around. They find themselves comparing him or her with the past relationship, and they normally find themselves at the losing end. So that is one of the major consequences of divorce. The third one is loneliness. Loneliness. This is a place where a marriage where you have shared a whole lot of passions, a whole lot of joy together. You have done all manner of things together, made love together, went out together, attended parties together, did all manner of things together. But somehow there were critical elements of the relationship that you found it difficult to resolve, and that is why you got yourself in the season of divorce. Now that you are divorced and you are now alone, because once the divorce takes place, likely either both spouses or one of them may move away, far away from the other one. So they don't want to see themselves again. They don't want to have anything to do with each other again. So, but at that point in time, loneliness creeps in. If it's a man that is living in a flat with only himself, he finds himself, the loneliness can be so tormenting. It can be so traumatic, whether you like it or not. Even as a woman, you think maybe when you divorce him, you go out there, you will be excited, you go to parties, you do this. No. When you divorce him and you are out of the relationship, you discover that other ladies of other ladies of your class, of your age, those ladies you think you will meet out there and you become this, they have all gotten married or they are in serious relationships, and you find yourself being the outside, the person on the outside. So the loneliness can be very frustrating. Are you a man and you got divorced? It is always difficult for you to have a good time with some of your friends who are married. And as a matter of fact, if their wives discover that their husbands are friends with you, they will do whatever is necessary to make sure that that relationship does not continue. Because if you have divorced your wife or you have divorced your husband, certainly you may influence their spouses to go the same trade. So it's a very uncomfortable situation. Loneliness. It can be embarrassing. At that point, you become very lonely. You are all alone. That is one of the things that is also a consequence of divorce. The fourth consequence of divorce is the sudden downfall, the sudden downfall in terms of your finances. This is a home that you were running with. Both of you were contributing, whether emotionally or financially or spiritually. There was a bond between you and your spouse, and you were, making these contributions genuinely and joyfully together. Now, the moment you part ways, you discover that there are some serious lapses in your finances. There are things that he used to come in and take care of. But you find yourself doing that alone. There are things that she used to, come in, take care of it without even your knowledge. But now you discover that every buck stops at your table. So before you know it, you discover that your finances are no longer the same. You are finding it difficult to make ends meet. Everything is going down. You may be the man that has been making all the money and you think that you are doing it by your own power, but you don't know that even your woman contributes spiritually. She's always in prayer. She's praying for you. And possibly that prayer is what is making your finances to accumulate the way it's doing. That's what is causing the kind of progress you are seeing in your work, in your profession. It is the prayer of your wife that is sustaining it. Now that you are parted ways, what happens? You are deprived of that spiritual audacity, that spiritual support. You are deprived of it. And before you know it, you start going down financially. If you see people who have been divorced over a season, their finances go down, whether they like it or not. So these are some of the things. I can go on and on. The consequences of divorce is terrible. Especially on the woman. If you are yet to subscribe to my channel, I urge you to do so. Please subscribe by clicking on that button, this red button by my side. The fifth consequence of divorce, the society where we live in, our kind of society, they don't look positively to people who are divorced. Even in church, when I minister to people, I tell them that even though God hates divorce, he does not hate the divorcee. I say that again. Even though God hates divorce, he does not hate the divorcee. But the society that we have is a society that not only hates divorce, but they cast aspersions on the divorcee. They see him or her as somebody who lacks the capacity, the wisdom the patience to organize his or her home profitably. They see that as somebody who is not able to stick to the vows he or she made at the altar and before a whole lot of witnesses. Remember, you swore that for better, for worse, you will cling to him. In riches or in poverty, you will cling to him. You swore that in sickness or in health, you will cling to him. You swore that, you made all kinds of, you entered into a covenant of matrimony in the presence of a whole lot of people. Now, how come that you are not walking away? If you can walk away from a covenant of marriage, certainly you can walk away from every other covenant. That is how society sees the divorcee. They don't look at whatever might have happened. They see it as maybe he is incapable of either providing refuge for the home or providing support to the wife, or is able to take care of the spouse, or is able to minister the kind of grace that can sustain a home. So the society looks at the divorcee, whether it's the man or the woman, they look at the divorcee negatively. And it can be very demeaning that you enter into a circle instead of people associating with you joyfully. Once they hear that you are divorced from your spouse, you are divorced from your husband, or you are divorced from your wife, they look at you with a kind of skepticism. So that is one of the I have seen people denied some certain positions because they divorced their spouses. I've seen that happen in so many ways. I've seen people divorce they were denied some certain positions, spiritual positions, secular positions, and all manner of positions simply because they were divorced. So those are the consequences. That's one of the consequences of divorce. And finally, I will also say this. Divorce brings with it loads of physical disorders. The moment there is a divorce, whether you know it or not, somehow sicknesses like high blood pressure will creep in. Sicknesses like asthma will creep in. Sicknesses like overweight, obesity will creep in. Sicknesses like binging, eating a lot of food, it will creep in. There are some certain sicknesses that will just creep in as a consequence of divorce. And why is it so? Because anger and bitterness in the spirit, when allowed to accumulate for a very long time, it comes out physically in a very negative form. It comes out as sicknesses. We have seen people who became rheumatic. They had rheumatism because of divorce. We have seen people who went into heart failures because of divorce. We have seen people give up on life because of divorce. So there are so many physical sicknesses, diseases that are offshoots of divorce. And if you are divorced, you will understand what I'm talking about. And if you are contemplating divorce, I want you to pay attention to some of the things I've mentioned here. It's very critical. It's very, very important. It will help you to look at your own marital situation and see whether this is something you can overcome. You may be separated from your spouse, and of course, overcome this. It is important that you deal with it. It is important that you look on this and make whatever is your own, whatever you decide to do. I have been talking about the consequences of divorce to the spouse, to the man or the woman, but there are yet other consequences. When I come back, I will also tell us more, especially the consequences of divorce to the children. That is the area we want to go into. And if you are here to subscribe to my channel, please do so immediately. Click on that red button, get subscribed, and let's do this together. Now, what can we say are the consequences of divorce, the effects of divorce on the life of the children that are involved? I mean, the children that are caught between the crossfire. What are the consequences? What are the effects of divorce on them? I discovered that the moment there is a divorce, either the man or the woman will decide to move far away from the other spouse. Sometimes they change cities. Sometimes they even change nations. They change countries. They move to different places. And in most cases, it's usually a particular spouse that gains custody of the children, thereby making it impossible for the child or children to have anything or to even have anything to do with the other one that has been, that is gone out. I mean, sometimes it is like that. And when it happens like that, the trauma on the children can be terrible. I have seen it happen several times. The children become withdrawn. They become bitter on the inside. They become angry. Some of them become violent in the process. I mean, it is so terrible. It is so terrible. I have seen children, especially those in school, lose every interest in their studies. Before you know it, they start flunking in all the exams. Whatever, they don't pay attention to their teachers anymore. They recoil to their shell. It's like they have been beaten, they have been destroyed on the inside. It's like their faith in their parents has been cast to the gutters. It's like the joy they had in having their mom or dad around and benefiting from the compassion, from the joy, from the kindness of both spouses is gone. It's like they have found themselves in a critical corner where they can no longer enjoy that covering, that parenting, that covering that parents provide. And it can be very, very traumatic on the life of children. Very, very. So I have seen it happen. Their educational distance goes low, totally low, totally low. Another thing that happens also is that they become so frustrated that they can no longer even trust their parents. They don't trust even further relationships. I have seen a woman tell the father, look, if you have divorced mom, then you have not shown me a practical example of what it means to enjoy marriage. It means that there's nothing in marriage anyway. If it is possible for you to kick aside my mom, then why are you encouraging me to get married? It means that there's nothing worthy about marriage. So these are the things that happen in the life of children who are caught in between. It is very, very terrible. You have not given them a reason to look on you as a mentor, as a role model. That part of you that is supposed to be a role model to them in what they could become in their family circle or in their marriages in future. That role model part is lost, and they find themselves just helpless and hopeless. It can be very terrible indeed. This is the second thing that happens to children that are caught in the divorce drama. And the other one also is that when a child is caught in such a place, he or she loses the parenting that the other couple could have brought in. If you see children that are actually raised by both parents, they are usually different from the one that is raised by either father or mother alone, because there is a virtue in both parents that they bring to the table. There is something about mom that she brings to the table. There's something about dad that he brings to the table that makes these children grow and become balanced in their view of life. But when you cut off a particular parent and one of them begins to, no matter how good you are in parenting, no matter how hard you try, there is an element of the other partner which you have denied your children. So they grow up having a biased understanding of life. They have a peculiar, negative way of looking at some certain things in life. They are not balanced. They are not balanced emotionally. So these are the things that happen. It even becomes worse when the spouse or when the person that had custody of the children begin to cast aspersions on the character of his wife or the character of her husband, and begin to make the children feel bad about the other parent that is no longer with them. I mean, before you realize that, you have created a kind of emotion inside of them that is difficult to survive from. So these are some of the things that happens to the children that are caught in that web of divorce. It's so terrible. It's so terrible. So demeaning. And I believe if we can do whatever we can to stop this thing called divorce and seek other ways of mending fences, it will make a lot of difference as we go into the fourth and final thing that can happen to children that are caught in the web of divorce. The children that are caught in this web called the divorce, the children that are caught in the middle, many times they find it difficult to build effective families, especially those who have become depressed over time, who have been frustrated, those who have lost hope in the viability of an effective marriage and family life. They become depressed, and because of that, when they go into relationships in future, they don't go into it with all the breaches burnt. They don't close every exit point. They go into it with the same kind of heart. If it doesn't work out, I will leave. Because daddy or mommy has shown me that it is possible to leave. So if it doesn't work out, I will leave. They don't have that what it takes to actually go into a relationship and hold forth and be patient enough to walk through. That is why many times when they are divorced parents, if care is not taken, they will produce children who will go on to have broken families also in future. So we try to avoid some of these things so that it doesn't happen to our children. I plead with the parents out there. I plead with the married couples out there. No matter how difficult, no matter how frustrating the situations may be, no matter how poor the situation may be, no matter how terrible you think that your partner may be, I want you to be more prayerful enough, more determined spiritually to work on him or her. Be on your knees and pray that God will bring your husband or bring your wife out of that perdition, out of that ugly situation, that the characters of your spouse will change so that the joyful seasons you believe God will give you in your marriage, it can be recalled, it can be revived, it can come back again. Divorce is never the option, my friends. It's never the option. The only thing I always tell married couples that are violent or that are always, violent, throwing all manner of things at one another, if it has degenerated to that, I would encourage you to separate for a season, separate for a season, and then go into prayers, call other people to intercede with you, and then, so that somehow God's kindness, God's mercy, God's grace can restore your relationship again. But when you divorce, it's like you have said bye-bye to the whole thing. I believe that there is nothing that is lost that cannot be found. I believe that so much. And there's no relationship that has been generated, that has gone sour, that cannot be revived. There's none. So if you can only be patient enough, if you can only be compassionate enough, if you can only hold on with a little more faith, that relationship still have a chance for success. That relationship can still be mended. That thing that you think has gone sour can still be mended. I believe sincerely in my heart. Only be patient. Only be prayerful. Go on your knees and believe God for victory, so that you can save yourself and your children from the emotional and psychological trauma that goes with divorce. I thank God that you have taken out time to listen to this edition. May God bless you. May God bless your home. May God bless your marriage. May God increase you in virtue and in value. You are blessed indeed. Once again, click on that red button, get subscribed, as I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful time.